Welcome back in 365 Sports Live from Radio Row in Phoenix. And Smokey had to leave us early today. He had some other obligations he had to get to, so we're still here. He's on the road back to Waco. But last night, maybe, 10 minutes after we got off the show, the release happens that Texas and OU are leaving the Big 12 1 year early, $100 million, $20 million goes to Fox, the rest distributed among the 8 partner schools. Macro's just on with the Smokey. And he says everybody kind of feels made whole in this. Everybody's at an amicable position and ready to move on. What do you think about this getting done, especially after a week ago there was some doubt cast on it because things had kind of gotten to a large stumbling block?
Well, as you remember on Friday when we had Mac on, he said that it was probably just everything was so close, but you had so many different moving parts that everybody just needed to step away from the tape. And so in that particular way, I'm just glad it's over. I'm glad it's over that Texas is is that noise in the background?
Yeah, a little bit from you, yeah.
I mean, there's nothing from me. I'm in my car.
I mean, we got like a little reverb from you or something. Let me
All right, let me just go with no Bluetooth. I'll just take off the Bluetooth.
Okay.
No, it's all the noise in the background from you though. That's weird.
Huh.
Oh, hold on.
Is there like a mic potted up?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and do that again. I'm sorry. I think it's the background noise that threw me off from you on my speaker.
Okay. All right. Okay.
All right.
It sounds better now. Yeah, okay. All right. Welcome back in 365 Sports here from Radio Row in Phoenix. Smokey joins us now. He had to leave early for some previous engagements, so he's not here for the last day, but on his way back to Central Texas. And Smokey, we just had Mac Rhodes. Everybody's kind of happy in the Big 12. It got done last week. Almost didn't feel like it was going to get done, at least on this timetable, but here we are a week later, and it's gotten done. Everybody feels made whole, and the money, $100 million distributed among Fox and the 8 schools, and of course some games with Oklahoma, make everybody happy and on the way out. How do you feel about the way it went down, and how do you feel about the way it went down 10 minutes after we got off the air yesterday?
Yeah, the timing was. I think I had just cut our promos for Sports Tonight on the CW, but I'm glad it's over. Some people will probably say this. Did the Big 12 win? Did Fox win? Did ESPN and the SEC and Texas and Oklahoma win? I don't care. It was something that there needed to be a cutoff date. And as far as let Texas and Oklahoma do whatever they want, that's what they want to do. But there had to be a figure. I was, even after reading more and more about it last night and this morning, I was kind of initially like, wait a minute. It could have been 160, could have been even more, but at the same time, when it gets into a legal situation, there's going to be settlements, there's going to be negotiations. It kind of does look as if grant of rights really doesn't matter when you can get, out of a conference, whether it's Texas, OU, or others that have left the Big 12. I'm just glad, honestly, for Texas and OU, they now have a start date for the SEC. The Big 12 has a start date for their 12 remaining teams. And everybody now knows. Just play one more year, one more calendar year after this one, and everybody take a deep breath and go do whatever you do and do it as well as you can. I'm happy. I'm happy that it's over. I'm tired of is it on? Is it off? Is Texas and OU? And it's an ending, and I'm glad. And I think that in the end, it's best for everybody involved.
Yeah, I think that everybody can move forward a little more amicably than they would have otherwise if this was going to drag on and then they were going to have to stay. I just think personally, I think we've all been spared a bunch of unnecessary tension and sniping and BS by Texas and OU not being, tied to the conference for another year after they had, there was a pathway out for them, and I just think it's going to be better all the way around because, can you imagine if they did have to stay another year, how sour that would be?
Yeah, well, it's really, even though it seemed like everything settled down once games started to be played, some fan bases were probably more harsh than others, and there was obviously the teams that were like so-called left behind probably had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, but they always would have had one against Texas and Oklahoma because of who they are. And, yeah, I think so. It was kind of I don't know. Maybe when Texas and OU didn't publicize the schedule other than just retweeting it, that was just maybe they knew. Maybe they realized this was going to be the last year. That's why they didn't put a lot of fanfare into it. They will when the schedule comes out for 2024 in football. So, yeah, let them go. Let them go. Everybody needs to just, again, move on. It's kind of like if you're going to have a breakup, and it doesn't need to last too long. And sometimes they last so long that it gets worse and worse and worse if you don't come to some sort of an agreement. Texas and OU, they've thrown out some snipes. I think really more from the fan bases than anybody else. There were a few things said early back from Kevin L. Type and those a part of Texas, and the quote about, well, what about all the others? And, well, we really don't care about them. Some of that was probably just natural breakup, instinctive comments, whatever. But there's an end date. Again, I keep going to that. There is an end date, and I can't wait for it. I'm sure everybody else involved can't wait for it either.
Yeah, Smokey, while we've been talking, something happened that and it threw me for a loop. There is an Andy Reid lookalike here on Radio Row right now. And when I tell you lookalike, I mean, I looked over there, and he was only about 20 feet away, and I thought, what is he doing here? He's got a game to coach, but this dude is dead. Is a dead ringer.
Does he have a Sharpie pen and drawing mustaches on people like he does in the commercials? That would be the giveaway.
Yeah, well, he was talking to former Rams quarterback Jim Everett, and so that's why I thought, Jim just walked over and said hello. They must know each other. And then, the Andy Reid lookalike took a selfie with Jim Everett, and that's kind of maybe the giveaway that it's not. There's a great many things I know about Andy Reid, and I think one of them would be that he is probably not posting selfies on Twitter, but I don't know.
And I'll tell you another thing about Andy Reid. He's kind of like just the normal guy. He could walk into a bar, if he's sitting there drinking a beer, having nachos, wings, whatever. I think you could probably see a lot of people that, Andy Reid just looks like kind of the normal guy. And some coaches, look like CEOs, and he looks like the guy you might see out around the tailgate area.
That's right. So all this realignment and all that. One of the more interesting things from Mac was he did kind of confirm that that tweet from Ross Dellinger that we saw that, didn't kind of confirm. He confirmed that step one is the TV deal. Step two is Texas and OU moving out a year early because now they don't have any, they know exactly what they're going to be in a year, and they can start being aggressive if they need to be with expansion. And he said, Commissioner Yormark's never taken back anything about moving west, and, expansion's been on the mind. He's like, Mac was careful to say, look, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it is definitely something that we can now explore as the Big 12 moving forward.
Yeah, and I think they should absolutely explore it. They should at least, check all the boxes and find out what's real and what's not. And, don't add just to add, but if you can acquire real estate, time zone, whatever you want, inventory, content, which is really you and I, and Claire, we've been saying that from, back in the day when people were looking at logos and all that, and why the Big 12 still ended up with a really nice contract extension. I wouldn't be against that. I don't think you just do it to do it. There's got to be a plan behind it, and I think that Yormark he probably already has the plan.
Yeah.
Now, it's also interesting to me that this story came down yesterday evening, right about the time you had at least what looked like something going on with the Pac-12, SMU, San Diego State, and here's the Big 12 all of a sudden. It's the story last night in college football. It's the story today. And then there's by the way, the Pac-12 is still looking at possibly adding a couple of other programs. And now, if you're George Kliavkoff, you still have to convince your conference partners to add them. And then all of a sudden, wait a minute, now there might be more room in the Big 12 now that they know about Texas and OU's exit date. And that, to me, is kind of almost one-upmanship, so to speak, from the Big 12 and your mark today.
Well, yeah, look,
last night.
They could make it really difficult even if, and I would think there'd be overlap in interest in schools, right? I mean, it's not like they're going to be like, oh, we didn't really care about SMU and San Diego State anyway. If there's overlap in any interest, I mean, Boise State kind of fits in that category very well as well. So Gonzaga, adding them, has been talked about by the Big 12, and it's been talked about by the Pac-12. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things that could happen, and I don't know what I would do if I was a San Diego State and I had the Pac-12 and the Big 12 both, coming to me and,
Yeah, I think, there's obviously you have to at least do some reconnaissance on, okay, who really now is still interested, if anybody, in the Pac-12. You also had that radar that at least was interested in what was going on at Boise State. You can always throw in the name, and I know that somebody will about, okay, is Memphis back in the game? And I don't think they are, but, at least who knows? But I doubt it because that's not the right time zone, and so that time might have already flown by for them. I'm just using – I think you look at everybody. I think the 4 original teams that are coming in, every single one of them made sense. From Cincinnati to Houston to UCF and Brigham Young made sense in many ways. I think you don't have to expand, but I do think if you do, I think if you're going to talk about the 4th time zone, then that's where you're focused. Boise State, obviously, Mountain Time Zone, as close as you can be to that. But I do think you should go and try to, okay. And by the way, and I'm not saying San Diego State and SMU should be off the table. Maybe they all of a sudden look at what's available to them, and they're like, wait a minute. Do you think we can get our foot back at least in the door in talking to your mark in the Big 12? Why not?
Absolutely. All right, Smokey, we will see you on Monday. Great week out here. Had a blast Super Bowl week. This was, I think we did really well. This is maybe our most relaxed one we've ever done. Yeah,
there were some gremlins. But I felt like, yesterday to me there's always the one day when you walk away, you're happy because of where you are. You never take that for granted. But having a chance to sit down with Earl Campbell and Tony Dorsett was awesome. And all the others we had as well. But I thought it went well. I just wish my back would feel better. And hopefully that's going to be the case here in the next 4 to 5 hours.
Well, we've been thinking about you all morning. And Coachy was over here very concerned about you, because he's much older than you. So,
yeah, he is a couple of years older than me, which means he's a lot older than me. At our age, a year means 5.
Yeah,
it's like cat lives. One cat life is 9 years. So, yeah. Well, tell him I said hi. You guys have a great finish to it, and obviously will be a lot to discuss, and even more so after the weekend clears the game, and then, of course, more and more on what the Big 12 does going forward.
All right, Smokey, that's David Smoak here with us on 365 Sports. We'll take a break right here. More of our coverage from Super Bowl Radio Row coming up right after this. We've got a ton of stuff. Joe Kelly, LeGarrette Blount, Jeff Schmullian, Andrew Sandejo, all coming up today here on 365 Sports.